There was a time when Michael J. Fox seemed completely unstoppable. In the 1980s, his face was everywhere. He was funny, charismatic, quick-witted, and effortlessly likable. Hollywood executives saw him as the perfect leading man. Audiences saw him as someone who felt real, not untouchable like many celebrities of the era. Whether he was starring in Family Ties or traveling through time and Back to the Future, Michael J. Fox represented pure energy. He had the kind of career most actors spend a lifetime chasing. But behind the laughter, behind the cameras, and behind the fame, something terrifying had already begun happening to him. Something that would slowly take control of his body and eventually transform his entire life into a daily fight for survival. And decades later, one emotional public moment connected to CNN would remind the entire world just how heartbreaking his story truly is. To understand why people reacted so emotionally, you first have to understand who Michael J. Fox once was. Born in Canada in 1961, Fox dreamed of becoming an actor from a very young age. Unlike many Hollywood stars who seemed larger than life, he was smaller in stature and didn't fit the traditional image of a leading man. But what he lacked physically, he made up for with personality. Producers immediately noticed his timing, intelligence, and natural screen presence. By the early 1980s, he landed the role of Alex P. Keaton on Family Ties, and everything changed almost overnight. The show became a massive success. Viewers loved his sarcastic humor and emotional depth. Critics praised him. Awards followed. Fame exploded. Suddenly, Michael J. Fox wasn't just a television actor anymore. He was becoming one of the biggest stars in America. Then came the role that made him immortal. In 1985, Fox starred as Marty McFly in Back to the Future, a movie that would become one of the most iconic films ever made. The film turned him into a global superstar. His performance was electric. He was cool without trying too hard, funny without being annoying, and emotional without seeming weak. The movie made history. Fans quoted his lines endlessly. Teenagers copied his style. Studios rushed to sign him for more projects. At just 24 years old, Michael J. Fox had become one of the most recognizable people on the planet. But while the public saw success, Fox himself was secretly pushing his body to dangerous limits. At the height of his fame, he was working almost non-stop. There were periods where he filmed television during the day and movies late into the night, barely sleeping. The pressure to stay successful in Hollywood was enormous. Everyone wanted a piece of him. And then something strange began happening. In the early 1990s, Fox noticed a small tremor in his finger. At first, it didn't seem serious. He assumed it was stress, exhaustion, or maybe an injury from overwork. But the shaking continued. Slowly, other symptoms appeared. His movements became less controlled. Certain tasks became harder. Deep down, he knew something was wrong. Doctors eventually gave him devastating news. In 1991, at only 29 years old, Michael J. Fox was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. The diagnosis shattered him. Parkinson's is a progressive neurological disorder that affects movement, coordination, speech, and balance. There is no cure. Symptoms worsen over time. For someone whose career depended on physical performance and public appearances, it was a nightmare beyond comprehension. Fox later admitted that he went into complete shock after hearing the diagnosis. One moment, he was one of the biggest stars in the world. The next, doctors were quietly warning him that his future could look very different. Some reportedly suggested he might only have a limited number of years left before the disease seriously impacted his ability to work. Imagine carrying that secret while millions of people still saw you as Hollywood's golden boy. And that's exactly what he did. For years, Fox hid the disease from the public. He continued filming movies, attending interviews, and smiling in front of cameras while privately dealing with fear, confusion, and emotional collapse. The pressure was unbearable. Every public appearance became stressful because he worried people would notice the tremors. Every movie set became exhausting because he had to carefully manage symptoms without exposing what was happening. But hiding the truth came with consequences. Fox has openly spoken about falling into alcoholism during this period. He drank heavily as he struggled to accept what his future might become. Fame suddenly felt meaningless compared to the reality he was facing privately. And perhaps the saddest part was that nobody around the world knew. Fans still saw the same energetic actor from Back to the Future. They had no idea he was fighting a terrifying battle every single day. As the years passed, however, keeping the secret became impossible. The symptoms slowly grew harder to control. Certain movements looked different on camera. Long workdays became physically draining. Fox realized that eventually the world would find out. In 1998, he made the life-changing decision to publicly reveal his Parkinson's diagnosis. The reaction was immediate. Fans were shocked. Many couldn't believe someone so young could face such a severe disease. Others were devastated because Michael J. Fox represented youth, humor, and optimism. Seeing him vulnerable felt deeply emotional. But instead of disappearing from public life, Fox did something nobody expected. He fought back. Rather than allowing Parkinson's disease to define him quietly behind closed doors, he became one of the world's most outspoken advocates for research and treatment. He launched the Michael J. Fox Foundation, dedicating his fame and influence to helping others battling the same disease. Over time, his foundation raised enormous amounts of money for scientific research and patient support programs. Researchers around the world praised his efforts for accelerating progress in Parkinson's treatment. But while his advocacy inspired millions, his personal condition continued getting worse. And eventually, the entire world began noticing. Public appearances became increasingly emotional to watch. His speech sometimes slowed. His balance became unstable. Interviews that once felt lighthearted now carried an undercurrent of sadness because fans could physically see the disease progressing. Still, Michael J. Fox continued smiling. He continued joking. He continued showing up even when it was painfully obvious how difficult daily life had become. And that's exactly why the recent CNN controversy exploded the way it did. Because for millions of people, Michael J. Fox is no longer just a celebrity. He's a symbol of courage in slow motion. And seeing him struggle publicly reminded the world of a painful truth many fans were not emotionally prepared to face. But the deeper tragedy surrounding Michael J. Fox is that Parkinson's disease does not attack all at once. It happens slowly, cruelly slowly. That's what makes his story so painful for longtime fans to witness. People didn't wake up one day and suddenly see a different Michael J. Fox. Instead, they watched tiny changes happen over decades. A slight tremor became more visible. His movements became less controlled. His speech occasionally slowed. His posture shifted. Step by step, the disease kept taking more from him. And yet somehow, his spirit remained intact. That contrast is what breaks people emotionally. Because when Michael J. Fox speaks, audiences can still see flashes of the same quick-witted young man who once dominated Hollywood. The humor is still there. The intelligence is still there. The warmth is still there. But physically, the battle has become impossible to ignore. Over the years, Fox tried to continue acting despite the worsening symptoms. He appeared in television shows, gave interviews, and participated in public events even when doing so became physically exhausting. Many people admired his courage, but others underestimated just how difficult those appearances truly were. Parkinson's affects far more than simple movement. It impacts coordination, muscle control, balance, facial expression, speech patterns, sleep, emotional regulation, and energy levels. Everyday activities most people never think about, walking across a room, holding an object steadily, or even standing upright for long periods, can become overwhelming challenges. Fox himself has admitted that the disease forced him to reinvent his entire life. He could no longer rely on the body that once made him a star. During some interviews, he spoke openly about waking up in pain, struggling with injuries from falls, and adapting to constant physical instability. In recent years, the falls became especially dangerous. He reportedly suffered broken bones and multiple injuries simply because maintaining balance became harder with age. For many fans, hearing those details was devastating. This was the same actor who once skateboarded through Hill Valley and Back to the Future with endless energy and confidence. Seeing him now fight just to maintain stability feels emotionally overwhelming for people who grew up watching him. And then came the public moment that reignited worldwide discussion. When clips of Fox appeared online connected to a CNN-related controversy, social media instantly exploded. Some viewers expressed concern and sympathy. Others reacted with shock at how much his condition had progressed physically. But what truly angered fans were the cruel comments that followed. A number of people online mocked his movements without understanding the reality of Parkinson's disease. Others spread insensitive jokes or treated the footage like entertainment rather than the painful reality of a human being living with a degenerative condition. The backlash was immediate. Thousands defended Michael J. Fox, criticizing both social media users and media coverage that appeared insensitive or exploitative. Many people argued that modern internet culture had lost basic empathy. And honestly, for longtime fans, the situation felt deeply disturbing. Because Michael J. Fox has spent decades trying to help people understand Parkinson's disease. He never hid from the public once he revealed the diagnosis. He educated people. He funded research. He gave emotional interviews. He showed vulnerability most celebrities would never dare reveal publicly. Yet despite all of that, there were still people mocking him simply for existing visibly with the disease. That's why the reaction became so emotional. For many viewers, it wasn't just about one viral clip. It represented something much larger: society's discomfort with aging, illness, and visible human suffering. Hollywood especially has always struggled with this reality. The entertainment industry celebrates youth, beauty, perfection, and physical charisma. Stars are often loved most when they appear invincible. But degenerative illness destroys that illusion. It forces audiences to confront mortality in real time. And no celebrity represents that more painfully than Michael J. Fox. Unlike many stars who disappear quietly after illness or aging, Fox remained visible. He allowed the public to see both the good days and the difficult ones. That honesty inspired millions, but it also exposed him to enormous emotional scrutiny. Some fans now admit they struggle emotionally watching his interviews because they remember who he used to be physically. Others say they continue watching precisely because his resilience gives them hope. In many ways, both reactions are understandable. Because watching Michael J. Fox today feels like watching two versions of a person exist simultaneously. You still see the brilliant actor, but you also see the devastating reality of Parkinson's disease. And perhaps what makes his story even sadder is that Fox himself has become increasingly honest about the progression of the illness. In recent documentaries and interviews, he acknowledged that Parkinson's is becoming harder to manage as he ages. He has spoken candidly about the uncertainty of the future. He has admitted there are days filled with frustration and pain. He has acknowledged that the disease keeps taking pieces of independence away from him. Yet somehow he still manages to joke during interviews. He still smiles. He still tries to inspire others. That emotional strength is why millions continue admiring him far beyond his acting career. At this point, Michael J. Fox is no longer simply remembered as Marty McFly or a sitcom star from the 1980s. He has become something far more significant culturally. He represents endurance. He represents dignity under pressure. And for many families dealing with Parkinson's disease or other degenerative illnesses, he represents visibility and hope. That's why the CNN controversy hurt people so deeply. It reminded fans that behind every viral clip is a real human being enduring something unimaginably difficult. Not a meme. Not a headline. Not internet entertainment. A person. A husband. A father. A man who spent over 30 years fighting a disease that slowly tried to steal his body while the entire world watched. And the heartbreaking truth is that despite all his courage, Parkinson's disease never truly stops advancing. That's the part many fans struggle hardest to accept. As the years passed, Michael J. Fox slowly became something Hollywood rarely knows how to handle. A living reminder that fame cannot protect anyone from suffering. That reality became increasingly visible during his later public appearances. There were moments when fans noticed him struggling to walk onto stages. Moments when his hands shook uncontrollably during interviews. Moments when simple movements appeared physically exhausting. Every appearance sparked waves of emotional reactions online, because audiences weren't just seeing an aging actor. They were watching a battle unfold in real time. And perhaps the cruelest part is that Parkinson's disease attacks unpredictably. Some days are manageable. Others are devastating. Symptoms can fluctuate dramatically, making it nearly impossible for patients to fully control how they appear publicly. Fox learned this the hard way. Even after becoming one of the world's most recognized advocates for Parkinson's research, he still faced constant public scrutiny. Cameras analyzed every movement. Headlines focused on his physical condition. Social media users endlessly compared old photos of him to newer appearances. For someone who once thrived on charisma and physical energy, that kind of visibility could have destroyed him emotionally. But instead of disappearing, Fox continued speaking openly about the reality of living with illness. That honesty changed millions of lives. Families dealing with Parkinson's disease often said that seeing Michael J. Fox publicly discuss fear, pain, frustration, and resilience made them feel less alone. Patients saw themselves reflected in his struggle. Caregivers understood the emotional exhaustion behind his smile. His vulnerability became his greatest strength. Yet behind the inspiration was a deeply painful truth that many people still underestimate. Parkinson's affects nearly every aspect of life. Over time, Fox reportedly experienced increasing difficulty with memory, mobility, speech, and physical coordination. Falls became more frequent. Injuries piled up. Daily routines became more complicated. At one point, he revealed that he had broken several bones after falling. For many fans, hearing that was shocking. Because when people think about Parkinson's disease, they often imagine tremors and shaking hands. They don't always realize how dangerous the condition becomes over decades. Loss of balance alone can lead to catastrophic injuries, especially as patients age. And Michael J. Fox has now been battling the disease for more than 30 years. 30 years. That number alone feels almost unbelievable. Most people diagnosed so young would likely retreat from public life entirely. Yet Fox kept appearing at charity events, interviews, documentaries, and award shows even when every public appearance required enormous effort. One particularly emotional moment came when he reunited publicly with Christopher Lloyd, his co-star from Back to the Future. Fans around the world were moved to tears watching the interaction. Lloyd embraced Fox warmly, while audiences applauded for several minutes. The scene went viral because it represented far more than nostalgia. People saw friendship, loyalty, mortality, and the painful passage of time. For older generations who grew up with Back to the Future, watching Fox struggle physically felt like watching part of their own youth disappear. The emotional connection audiences built with him over decades made his condition feel strangely personal. That's something many modern celebrities never experience. Michael J. Fox wasn't just famous. He was comforting to people. Familiar. Safe. His movies represented optimism and adventure. Even his humor felt approachable. So seeing him endure such a relentless disease creates an emotional reaction that goes far beyond ordinary celebrity news. And then there's the psychological toll. Fox has admitted in interviews that accepting the disease mentally was just as difficult as enduring it physically. In the early years after diagnosis, he reportedly felt terrified about losing his future. Alcohol became a coping mechanism. Denial became part of survival. But eventually, he realized something important. He could either spend the rest of his life mourning who he used to be or find purpose in who he still was. That shift transformed everything. The Michael J. Fox Foundation eventually became one of the most respected organizations in neurological research. Scientists praised its aggressive funding strategy and commitment to accelerating treatment breakthroughs. In many ways, Fox accomplished something extraordinary. He turned personal tragedy into global impact. Millions of dollars were directed toward Parkinson's research because he refused to remain silent. Patients gained visibility. Families gained hope. Public awareness expanded dramatically because one actor chose honesty over secrecy. But even heroes have limits. In recent years, Fox's interviews have become increasingly emotional because he appears more fragile physically than ever before. There are moments where viewers can sense exhaustion behind the humor. Moments where even smiling seems difficult. And that's exactly why the CNN-related controversy sparked such outrage online. Because many people felt the public had crossed a line. Mocking a man visibly battling Parkinson's after decades of advocacy felt deeply cruel to fans who had followed his journey for years. People weren't just defending a celebrity anymore. They were defending someone they viewed almost as family. Social media became flooded with emotional tributes. Fans shared old clips from Back to the Future and Family Ties alongside recent footage, reflecting on how much he had endured. Others wrote about loved ones battling Parkinson's disease themselves, explaining why Fox's story mattered so much personally. And perhaps the most heartbreaking part of all is this. Michael J. Fox knows exactly what audiences see when they look at him now. He understands the contrast between the energetic young actor people remember and the man Parkinson's disease has physically transformed. He has spoken openly about confronting that reality emotionally. Yet he still chooses to appear publicly anyway. That takes a level of courage most people cannot imagine. Because every interview invites judgment. Every appearance risks viral discussion. Every moment on camera reminds the world of what Parkinson's disease has taken from him physically. But it also reminds the world of something else. The disease never took his humanity. It never took his humor. And it never took the extraordinary resilience that made millions admire him in the first place. By this stage of his life, Michael J. Fox had already survived more emotionally and physically than most people could endure in a lifetime. But the disease kept advancing. That is the brutal reality of Parkinson's disease that many people still struggle to fully understand. There are treatments. There are medications. There are therapies that can temporarily help manage symptoms. But there is still no cure. Over time, the condition continues taking more from the body little by little. And for Fox, the progression became impossible to hide. In recent years, fans noticed that even sitting still during interviews appeared exhausting. His muscles sometimes moved involuntarily. His speech occasionally became harder to follow. Simple gestures required concentration. Watching him publicly battle these symptoms created an emotional conflict for audiences around the world. People admired his courage, but they also felt heartbreak seeing how much he had changed physically. For many longtime fans, the hardest part was remembering just how vibrant he once was. Michael J. Fox wasn't simply another actor from the 1980s. He was pure momentum. Everything about him moved quickly: his speech, his humor, his energy, his physical comedy. That's why Parkinson's disease feels especially cruel in his case. It attacked the very qualities that defined him publicly. And yet somehow, despite losing so much physically, he gained something even more powerful emotionally: perspective. Over the years, Fox became known not just for honesty, but for a surprisingly dark sense of humor about his own condition. In interviews, he sometimes joked about falling or dealing with symptoms in ways that shocked audiences. Some people misunderstood that humor, but others recognized it as survival. Humor became armor, because if he stopped laughing completely, the emotional weight of the disease might become unbearable. Still, there were moments where the pain behind the smile became impossible to ignore. One of the most emotional revelations came when Fox admitted that living with Parkinson's had become increasingly dangerous due to frequent falls and injuries. At one point, he described breaking bones in separate accidents and dealing with severe physical setbacks during recovery. For fans watching at home, those admissions were devastating. This was a man who spent decades inspiring others, yet his own body continued betraying him despite all his strength and resilience. And perhaps that's why the public reacted so intensely to the CNN controversy and the online reactions surrounding it. Many people felt they were witnessing society lose its compassion in real time. Instead of seeing a human being fighting a neurological disease, some online users reduced him to viral content. That angered millions, because Michael J. Fox has earned enormous respect not only as an entertainer, but as one of the most important advocates in modern medical fundraising. His work through the Michael J. Fox Foundation helped accelerate scientific research around the world. Researchers repeatedly credited the foundation with changing how Parkinson's research was funded and organized. Families coping with the disease often viewed Fox as a source of hope during their darkest moments. That's what made the mockery feel so cruel. It wasn't just criticism aimed at a celebrity. It felt like disrespect toward every person battling degenerative illness publicly or privately. And while social media debates exploded, Fox himself remained largely consistent with the mindset he has shown for years, focusing on acceptance rather than bitterness. That perspective didn't come easily. Fox has spoken openly about the emotional devastation he experienced after his diagnosis. In the beginning, he reportedly struggled with fear, denial, anger, and depression. He worried about his family. He worried about losing his career. He worried about becoming dependent on others. But eventually something changed. Rather than asking, "Why is this happening to me?" he began asking, "What can I still do?" That mental shift may have saved him psychologically. Instead of retreating from the world, he built a new purpose around helping others. Instead of pretending to be invincible, he allowed people to see vulnerability. In a culture obsessed with perfection, that honesty became revolutionary. Ironically, Parkinson's disease may have revealed the most important parts of who Michael J. Fox truly was. Not the movie star, not the celebrity, but the human being underneath all of it. And that human being turned out to be remarkably resilient. Even now, decades after his diagnosis, Fox continues appearing publicly despite knowing millions of people are watching every movement closely. Most celebrities would hide from that level of scrutiny. Fox continues facing it head-on. That takes extraordinary courage. because every public appearance now carries emotional risk. Fans often react with sadness after seeing him struggle physically. Interviews become emotional before he even speaks. Audiences project their fears about aging, illness, and mortality onto him. In many ways, Michael J. Fox unintentionally became a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest fears. The fear of losing independence. The fear of physical decline. The fear of time itself. That's why his story resonates so powerfully across generations. Older fans see memories of their youth fading alongside him. Younger viewers see a brutal lesson about how quickly life can change. Families affected by Parkinson's disease see representation and understanding. And through all of it, Fox continues moving forward one difficult day at a time. There's something profoundly heartbreaking about that image. A man once famous for traveling through time and back to the future now spends his real life battling a disease that relentlessly reminds him of time's power every single day. No special effects. No script. No Hollywood ending. Just resilience. And perhaps that's why people continue feeling so emotional whenever Michael J. Fox appears publicly. Beneath the fame and nostalgia, audiences recognize something deeply human in him. They see someone trying to remain hopeful while carrying unimaginable weight. Someone refusing to disappear even as his body becomes increasingly fragile. Someone proving that dignity does not come from physical strength alone. Because despite everything Parkinson's disease has taken from Michael J. Fox, it never managed to take away the part of him that inspired the world. As public concern surrounding Michael J. Fox continued growing, many people began asking the same heartbreaking question. How much longer can he keep doing this? It's a painful question because Fox himself has never tried to pretend that Parkinson's disease is getting easier. In fact, over the last several years, he has become increasingly honest about the physical and emotional toll the illness continues taking on his life. And the honesty is difficult to hear. During interviews and documentaries, Fox has described waking up every morning uncertain about how his body will function that day. Some mornings are manageable. Others are brutal. The unpredictability alone creates enormous psychological stress. Imagine never fully trusting your own body. Imagine knowing that something as simple as walking across a room could result in another painful fall. That is the reality Michael J. Fox has been living with for decades. What makes the situation even more tragic is that Parkinson's disease doesn't only affect patients physically. It also affects families emotionally. Spouses become caregivers. Children grow up witnessing decline. Everyday routines slowly change around the illness. Fox has spoken lovingly about the support he received from his wife, Tracy Pollan, throughout the darkest moments of his journey. Their marriage survived pressures that destroy many celebrity relationships: fame, illness, emotional exhaustion, and public scrutiny. In many ways, Pollan became one of the most important reasons Fox kept fighting. Because there were periods where emotionally, he was struggling far more than the public realized. In earlier interviews, Fox admitted that after his diagnosis, he initially fell into deep despair. Alcohol became a dangerous escape. He feared becoming a burden. He feared losing control over his future. He feared the humiliation of public decline. Those fears never fully disappear for people battling degenerative illness. But over time, Fox slowly rebuilt his mindset. He stopped measuring his worth based on what Parkinson's had taken away and began focusing on what remained. That philosophy eventually became central to how he approached life publicly. Still, acceptance does not erase pain. And fans were reminded of that reality during some of his more recent appearances, where his condition appeared visibly more advanced than ever before. There were moments where audiences fell silent, simply watching him walk onto a stage. Moments where viewers at home admitted they struggled emotionally seeing him speak through difficult symptoms. Moments where nostalgia collided painfully with reality. Because people don't just remember Michael J. Fox as an actor. They remember how he made them feel. For millions, Back to the Future represented excitement, possibility, humor, and youth. It became one of those rare movies permanently connected to childhood memories and happier times. Seeing Fox physically transformed by Parkinson's disease forces many fans to confront the uncomfortable truth that time changes everyone eventually. And that emotional reaction intensified dramatically after the CNN-related controversy spread online. What disturbed many people most wasn't just the insensitive comments themselves. It was how quickly social media turned a visibly ill man into viral discourse. Some users analyzed his movements frame by frame. Others argued over whether certain footage should have been aired publicly at all. The humanity of the situation began disappearing beneath internet outrage cycles. That's when many fans pushed back hard. People reminded others that Michael J. Fox is not simply a public figure to be consumed endlessly online. He is someone enduring a progressive neurological disease with extraordinary openness and courage. And unlike many celebrities who carefully control their image, Fox has consistently allowed audiences to see the difficult reality of his condition. That vulnerability helped countless families feel less isolated in their own struggles. But vulnerability also comes with risk. The internet can be merciless. And sadly, some viewers seem incapable of separating illness from entertainment. For people close to Parkinson's disease, those reactions were especially painful to witness. Many families dealing with the condition explained online that Fox's symptoms were completely recognizable to them. The instability, the involuntary movements, the exhaustion hidden beneath public smiles. To them, there was nothing funny about what they saw. Only heartbreak. Yet despite everything, Michael J. Fox continues trying to focus on gratitude rather than bitterness. That may be the most extraordinary part of his story. Because he has every reason to feel angry at life. He became globally famous only to receive a devastating diagnosis before turning 30. He spent decades slowly losing physical abilities most people take for granted. He endured injuries, pain, emotional struggles, and relentless public observation. And still, he continues trying to inspire others. That level of resilience is rare. Even doctors and researchers who worked alongside him often described being amazed by his emotional endurance. They saw firsthand how physically difficult ordinary days could become for him. Yet Fox repeatedly showed up to support research efforts, raise awareness, and encourage patients battling similar conditions. He refused to disappear quietly. In doing so, he changed how millions viewed Parkinson's disease forever. Before Michael J. Fox spoke publicly, many people knew very little about the illness. Today, because of his advocacy, awareness is dramatically higher worldwide. Funding increased. Research accelerated. Conversations became more open. That impact alone would make his legacy extraordinary. But emotionally, his story resonates for another reason too. It reminds people that strength does not always look the way society expects. Strength is not always physical dominance. Sometimes strength is simply continuing to face the world while suffering publicly. Sometimes strength is allowing yourself to be seen honestly even when you know people will judge you. And that's exactly what Michael J. Fox has done for over 30 years. Every shaky interview, every difficult public appearance, every painful step onto a stage, all of it represents a man refusing to surrender his humanity to illness. Which is why so many people reacted emotionally to the controversy surrounding him recently. Deep down, audiences weren't just defending a celebrity. They were defending dignity itself. Because watching Michael J. Fox today is heartbreaking for one simple reason. You can clearly see the disease attacking his body. But you can also clearly see that it never defeated his spirit. By now, the public image of Michael J. Fox had transformed completely from what it once was in the 1980s. He was no longer viewed only as the fast-talking Hollywood star from Back to the Future or the charming sitcom actor from Family Ties. Instead, he had become something far more emotional in the eyes of the public, a symbol of endurance. But symbols come with pressure. Every time Fox appeared publicly, millions immediately analyzed his physical condition. Fans worried about him constantly. Headlines focused on whether he looked better or worse. Even moments meant to celebrate his achievements often became discussions about how fragile he appeared physically. That kind of attention can become emotionally exhausting, especially for someone already fighting a disease every single day. And despite his remarkable optimism, there have been moments where the emotional weight clearly showed on his face. Some interviews became deeply personal as Fox discussed confronting mortality more directly than ever before. He admitted that Parkinson's disease forced him to think about life differently. Things that once seemed important, fame, status, career competition, gradually lost meaning compared to health, family, and time. That realization changed him profoundly. In earlier decades, Michael J. Fox was constantly chasing success because Hollywood demanded non-stop momentum. Bigger movies, bigger contracts, bigger ratings. The entertainment industry rewards people who never slow down. Ironically, Parkinson's disease forced him to slow down completely. And through that painful process, he discovered a different perspective on life. Fox began speaking openly about gratitude in ways that surprised many people. He acknowledged the suffering caused by the disease, but he also talked about appreciating small moments more deeply than before. Family dinners, conversations, simple peaceful mornings. Things most people barely notice suddenly became meaningful. That emotional maturity became one of the most inspiring parts of his story. But it also made the public reaction to his visible decline even more heartbreaking. Because audiences weren't just watching a celebrity struggle physically anymore. They were watching someone they genuinely respected suffer through something profoundly unfair. And unfortunately, the internet often struggles with empathy. The CNN-related controversy surrounding Fox exposed that harsh reality once again. Online discussions quickly became toxic in some corners of social media. Some users made cruel comments about his appearance or movements, while others argued about whether media outlets were exploiting his condition for emotional engagement. For many fans, the situation felt disturbing on multiple levels. Because Parkinson's disease is not entertainment. It is not performance. It is not a meme. It is a progressive neurological condition affecting millions of families around the world. And Michael J. Fox has spent decades trying to educate people about that truth. That's why the mockery hurt so deeply to those who admired him. People remembered everything he had contributed, not only as an actor, but as an advocate. Through the Michael J. Fox Foundation, he helped fund groundbreaking research and pushed scientists toward new treatment possibilities. Many experts believe his advocacy accelerated global attention toward Parkinson's disease in ways few public figures ever could. Yet despite all those accomplishments, public conversations still sometimes reduced him to his symptoms. That contradiction is tragic, because if you listen carefully to Michael J. Fox speak today, you quickly realize something important. His mind remains incredibly sharp. The humor is still there. The intelligence is still there. The emotional warmth is still there. Parkinson's may have changed his body dramatically, but it did not erase the core of who he is. And perhaps that's what makes watching him so emotional for audiences. People can still clearly recognize the man they grew up admiring. He's still present behind the symptoms, still fighting to connect with people, still trying to inspire others despite unimaginable physical difficulty. There's something deeply human about that struggle, especially in a culture obsessed with perfection and image control. Most celebrities spend enormous energy hiding weakness from the public. Michael J. Fox did the opposite. He allowed the world to witness vulnerability firsthand. He showed what living with degenerative illness actually looks like over decades. That honesty changed lives. Countless Parkinson's patients later explained that seeing Fox publicly embrace reality gave them courage to stop hiding their own condition. Families said his interviews helped them discuss illness more openly. Caregivers said his advocacy made them feel seen and understood. In many ways, Fox accidentally became far more important than he ever was as a movie star alone. Because movies entertain people temporarily. But honesty about suffering can impact people forever. Still, honesty comes with emotional consequences. There are moments now where watching Michael J. Fox publicly feels almost painful because the progression of the disease is impossible to ignore. Even loyal fans sometimes admit they struggle emotionally during interviews because they remember the unstoppable energy he once had. And perhaps no fact is more heartbreaking than this. Fox received his diagnosis at only 29 years old. 29. Most people at that age feel like life is only beginning. Careers are rising. Dreams feel endless. The future seems wide open. Fox had all of that. Then suddenly, his entire future changed forever. Yet instead of disappearing into bitterness, he somehow transformed tragedy into purpose. That transformation may ultimately become his greatest legacy. Not the fame, not the awards, not even Back to the Future, but the example he gave the world about resilience. Because despite decades of pain, uncertainty, physical decline, and public scrutiny, Michael J. Fox continued showing people what courage looks like in its rawest form. Not dramatic courage, not cinematic courage, real courage. The kind that wakes up every day knowing the battle will continue and keeps going anyway. And maybe that's why so many people feel emotional whenever they see him now. They are not simply looking at a celebrity growing older. They are witnessing one of the most public and heartbreaking battles against Parkinson's disease the world has ever seen. As time continued moving forward, Michael J. Fox gradually reached a point where even his strongest supporters began worrying about how much more his body could endure. The signs were becoming harder to ignore. Public appearances grew less frequent. Interviews became shorter. Walking looked increasingly difficult. Some fans noticed that even sitting comfortably during conversations appeared physically demanding for him now. And yet, despite all of that, Fox still refused to completely disappear from public life. That decision alone says everything about who he is. Because retreating would have been understandable. After decades under constant public observation, most people would choose privacy. They would step away from cameras, avoid interviews, and protect themselves emotionally from the endless online commentary. But Michael J. Fox continued showing up. Not because it was easy, because it mattered. Over the years, he realized that visibility itself had become part of his mission. Every time he appeared publicly, while visibly battling Parkinson's disease, he reminded the world that patients are still human beings deserving dignity, respect, and compassion. And perhaps that's why the reaction surrounding the CNN controversy felt so painful to so many people. For fans, it exposed an uncomfortable truth about modern culture. People have become desensitized to visible suffering. Instead of responding with empathy, some online users immediately turned Fox's condition into content. Clips spread rapidly across social media platforms. Strangers analyzed his body language. Comment sections filled with insensitive remarks from people who seemed completely disconnected from the reality of neurological illness. To many viewers, it felt deeply cruel. Because Michael J. Fox has never hidden what Parkinson's disease has done to him. He has spent years educating the public openly and honestly. There was no scandal, no deception, no secret, just a man fighting a brutal illness in front of the entire world. And still, some people laughed. That reaction disturbed fans more than almost anything else. Not only because they cared about Fox personally, but because it reflected how society often treats illness when it becomes visibly uncomfortable to witness. People love inspiration stories when they are neat and uplifting. But long-term suffering makes many people uneasy. Parkinson's disease is not cinematic. It is repetitive, exhausting, and relentless. There is no dramatic final victory scene, no miracle recovery. Just years of adaptation, frustration, pain, and emotional endurance. Michael J. Fox showed the world that reality without filtering it. And perhaps that honesty is exactly why his story became so powerful. Over time, audiences stopped viewing him simply as a celebrity and began seeing him as something more relatable. A human being confronting the same fears everyone eventually faces. The fear of losing independence. The fear of aging. The fear of becoming physically vulnerable. The fear of time running out. Fox confronted those fears publicly while millions watched. That level of openness created an emotional connection very few celebrities ever achieve. Even younger generations who didn't grow up with Back to the Future began discovering his story through documentaries, interviews, and viral clips. Many were shocked to learn that he had been battling Parkinson's disease since the early 1990s. More than 30 years. That timeline alone feels staggering. Imagine waking up every day for 3 decades, knowing the illness inside your body is slowly progressing, no matter how hard you fight it. Most people cannot even comprehend the emotional exhaustion that creates. Yet Fox repeatedly demonstrated remarkable psychological resilience. He openly acknowledged fear without allowing fear to define him completely. That balance became one of the most admirable aspects of his personality. He never pretended Parkinson's disease was inspirational or beautiful. He spoke honestly about pain, frustration, injuries, and uncertainty. But he also refused to surrender entirely to hopelessness. That mindset inspired millions. Patients battling Parkinson's often described Fox as proof that life could still contain meaning after diagnosis. Families caring for loved ones with neurological diseases found comfort in his honesty. Doctors and researchers praised the awareness he brought to conditions many people previously ignored. Through the Michael J. Fox Foundation, his impact reached far beyond entertainment. And ironically, his greatest contribution to the world may have come after Hollywood believed his career was ending. That's one of the strangest parts of his story. The diagnosis that seemed destined to destroy his future eventually transformed his purpose completely. Of course, none of that erased the suffering itself. There are still moments during recent interviews where audiences can visibly sense the physical strain he is enduring. Sometimes his body moves unpredictably. Sometimes his speech slows. Sometimes exhaustion shows clearly across his face despite the smile. Those moments are difficult to watch emotionally, because fans remember who he once was physically. But maybe that contrast is exactly what makes his story unforgettable. Michael J. Fox unintentionally became one of the most visible examples of what chronic illness truly looks like over time. Not in a movie, not in fiction, in real life. And real life is messy. Some days are hopeful. Some days are devastating. Some moments feel triumphant. Others feel unbearably sad. Fox allowed the public to witness all of it. That vulnerability created a legacy far deeper than fame alone could ever provide. Today, when people discuss Michael J. Fox, they rarely focus only on his acting anymore. Instead, they talk about courage, humanity, persistence, compassion, resilience under impossible circumstances. In many ways, Parkinson's disease changed how the world saw him completely. But perhaps the most heartbreaking truth of all is this. Despite decades of advocacy, billions raised for research, and enormous scientific progress, Michael J. Fox still wakes up every day living with the disease himself. There is still no cure. The battle never truly ended. And that reality continues breaking hearts around the world every time fans see him appear publicly. Because beneath all the headlines, documentaries, and viral clips is something painfully simple. A man who gave joy to millions now fighting one of the cruelest battles imaginable with extraordinary grace.